think that we're ever going to see something like that again, where new reliable sources or documentation about this will come to light? What do you think?
I think that there are at least two other documents around. I suspect that in order to bring them to light, someone's going to have to pay an awful lot of money for them. A bit like, for example, the Gospel of Judas.
Mm-hmm.
It's been known about for, 40, 50 years? And it was stuck in a safe deposit box for years. It got completely ruined in there simply because someone wouldn't put up whatever it was the asking price was, £1 million or something for it.
Right.
Now, I suspect that there are at least a couple of other documents like that around. But, whether they will ever come to light or not, and if they do come to light, what state they will be in, I've got no idea.
Right. How about the Bible as, I guess, historical document? Are there clues in there as well?
Oh, yes, I think there are. But what one has to appreciate is that the Gospels were rewritten after 325 AD. And I mean, Eusebius actually says, I and my scribe sat down and rewrote them. So you have to read them with a degree of skepticism and see what was possibly in the original and what has been added to or changed. I mean, for example, von Tischendorf, when he was preparing his collection, which is now in the Strathclyde Library, he actually said, he was amazed by the way that the monks had quite, without even thinking about it, decided to change what the original said because it didn't conform to church dogma.
Yeah.
So one has to be very careful about it. But yes, sure, there are clues here and there in these documents. And I mean, for example, the work of Lady Droa on the Mandeans is terribly important because it's the only extant work which gives a different story for John and says that John was considerably older than Jesus and that he was the original founder, if you like, and that Jesus merely took over after John had died.
Tell us a little bit more about the Mandeans. This is something that has come up a little bit now and then recently in the program, and we haven't kind of discussed it that much. What do you know about the Mandeans? And this was, as far as I understand it, pretty much a Gnostic type sect in the region of Iraq today, I guess.
Well,
correct?
Yeah, I mean, they're almost. I'm not sure even how many there are left because they were almost totally wiped out by Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
They were the people of the sort of fens of the little rivers and so on at the southern end of Iraq near the Iran border, and they have their own Bible, their own belief system, and everything else, which they call in order to survive in the Muslim world, they call themselves Johannite Muslims, but strictly, I think they call themselves sort of a sect of Shia or something.
Okay.
But originally they were called Johannite Christians.
From John the Baptist,
Johannite. From John,
yes.
Yeah. And as far as they're concerned, John was the Messiah, and Jesus was a false Messiah, who took over and changed the word of John. And for example, all the story about, the Magnificat.
No.
How does it start? Oh goodness me, I can't remember now.
Okay.
But that wasn't actually said by Mary. It was originally said by Elizabeth about her son John. The Lord doth magnify my name, and so on. My name does magnify the Lord. I beg your pardon. That was actually taken straight out of there and stuck into the Gospels as if it's said by Mary. But in fact, the Church agrees that it was originally said by Elizabeth about her son John.
Okay. That's interesting. And this is the Magnificat. For those who doesn't know this, it's a text of the.
Well, nowadays it's a sort of thing that the Roman Catholic Church almost sort of a lot of people have to sort of learn it by heart. You know, my soul doth magnify my Lord, and the something God my Saviour, who hath something rather his handmaiden, so that all people shall call me blessed. I can't remember. I used to know it by heart, but it's a long time ago.
But there's possible clues here that lies within this then, and this is part of the Gospel of Luke, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. And so the importance of John the Baptist here, and again, do you think that there's an entire line, so to speak, that is connected with John the Baptist? Or?
Oh, I do think so, yes. I mean, as I've said, all the evidence that I've got points to Mary Magdalene being the daughter of John the Baptist.
Okay.
Now, John the Baptist was probably something like 14 years older than Jesus.
Okay.
So his daughter would have been, just about the right age to marry Jesus. And the point about it is that Anya, John the Baptist's wife, is called by him in one of his love poems to her, my pearl of Petra.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Now, that puts us straight back into the Nabateans and the line of Petra.
Yes.
However, I can find no record that John, as such, ever became king of the Nabateans, or king of Petra.
Okay.
However, Anya is the name of one of the daughters of one of the King Aretas. I can't remember which one offhand it is. And it strikes me, therefore, likely that what actually happened, because that king only had daughters, so it's probable that he married his daughter off to John the Baptist, who was probably the Zadok priest of Petra.
Okay.
Now, one of the other things that's become very clear is that the Petrans were very much Zadoks as opposed to, shall we say, Sadducean type Jews. Okay? And the Zadok priesthood was the one that sort of, to a very large extent, I think, controlled things there. So wouldn't it be unsurprising if the daughter of the king married the high priest, and that they had then a daughter called Miriam.
Okay.
Now, what I've suggested is that, in point of fact, John, because he was not directly, what shall we say, he wasn't directly descended from the kings there, would have had to probably prove himself as, what shall we say, Prince Regent in the name of his wife.
Okay.
And the Bible suggests that John went into the desert and disappeared for years, etc., etc., etc. Why? Because they don't want to admit where he actually was, which was probably making a royal tour of the Nabatean and Sabbatean Empire, which extended right through into modern Ethiopia, and in fact included the hill fortress of what's now called Magdala.
Okay.
So, now, almost certainly he would have been accompanied by Anya, because after all, it wasn't in his own name that he was there, it was in only as her husband. So, my thinking on this is that therefore, whilst they were away, which probably took several years, a daughter was born to them into or near Magdala, and she was given the name of Miriam. She became known as Miriam of Magdala, or in English, Mary Magdalene.
Okay, gotcha.
So this is, as I say, this is the evidence of that I have got, and one has to say that it is fairly minimal evidence, but such as it is, that's what it's pointing towards.
Okay, I see. And just to sneak that in there, I mean, the site, I think it's referred to as the cleft in the rock. Would you say that the site in
Sorry,
Petra?
what?
I'm talking about the site in Petra, that incredible church, that is.
Oh, the treasury.
Carved into the rock. Would you say? Do you think that was the headquarters, so to speak, of the time of the Nabateans, or?
Oh, it was. I mean, there's actually a very interesting show which you can pick up on one or other. In fact, I picked it up only today about Petra. I mean, Petra is about. There are two complete cities there, of which this sort of famous rock carving known as the temple, known as the treasury, is only a very small part. I mean, it extends over something like 32 kilometers. And there is an upper and a lower city. And it was the headquarters of the Nabateans. And this is quite clear. I mean, we all know that. And that is quite clearly, archaeological finds and everything else. And indeed, of course, the Romans mentioned it, because the Romans took over Petra and the kingdom of Nabatea in whatever it was, 32 AD or something. I can't remember. 32 BC. I beg your pardon.
Okay.
They, but it was a fantastic sort of a complete city. And then, of course, in 300 and something or other, there was an enormous earthquake, and half of the city was knocked down.
Yes.
And then in 525, I think it was, there was a second earthquake when the rest of the city basically disappeared in dust. But I mean, it was a fantastic city with a fantastic artisans and a wonderful culture, in fact, far higher than the Roman culture that took over.
That's interesting. And this is where the entire Petra dynasty, so to speak, probably were living, and that this is where their headquarters was, so to speak. And
indeed, and there's a thing called the Tomb of the Kings there, which presumably is where their kings were buried.
Okay. Very, very interesting. I mean, again, it's a wonderful site. I haven't been there myself yet. I hope to go there someday just to check it out, to see how big it is, and just see the incredible architecture that obviously is carved right into the rock. It's an incredible site. Have you been there, by the way?
No, I haven't. I mean, I was supposed to go there this year, but for reasons, various and sundry reasons, I couldn't get there.
Okay.
Because I really wanted to go and see it. But having just seen this fantastic slideshow on the internet, I realized that probably because you have to do an awful lot of walking there, and I'm not quite sure that in my arthritic state I'm up to doing it anymore.
Ah, okay. Well, that's a shame.
But,
yeah.
There we are.
Okay. Okay. So we have many threads here, so to speak, that we can go off on tangents here to tie this together and speak more about this. I want to ask you a little bit more generally, I guess, if we tie it back again to Montgomery. Do you know if your family then has a specific lineage that is connected with the dynasties and the bloodlines that we have been talking about so far?
Well, let's put it this way: the Montgomerys were close cousins. In fact, they were third cousins to the family of the Dukes of Normandy. Okay? And the Dukes of Normandy, as I've shown in my second book, The God Kings of England, descend from a guy called Ragnar Lothbrok, or Heraldus Brockus. He's got Harold Hisseltine, he's got various names, Heraldus Brockus, etc. And the Montgomerys equally well descend from him. The first Montgomery's name was actually Ragnar Gormson, which became Latinized as Rogerius Gormericus. And eventually, when they built a little sort of hill fort in Normandy, it became known as Mons Gormerici. And so we get the name Montgomery from there.
Okay,